this skill costs 40 energy and increases your crit rate for 2%, by 2% for 60 seconds. Um, it it's I can kind of see how some people might think it's useful, but ultimately, unless you have like a genie that you use it for, well, buffing or something, it's pretty much useless skill to have on your main genie. I mean, rank 9 archers have what, like 35 to 40 something percent crit rate depending on cultivation and gears, and that 2% is really nothing. Um, the 2% increase in crit rate is not even equal to 2% increase in overall DPS, because you already have an existing crit rate. Off the top of my head, I think it's like around 1.5% increase in DPS. I mean, I already talked about how Windshield is kind of useless, because it only yields a 15% damage reduction. Now compare it to Leaf Dance, which only grants a something like 1.5 and 2% maximum increase in DPS, and it's kind of I think it's kind of obvious why Leaf Dance is pretty much useless. For that reason, I mean, sure, if you don't crit at all, you probably won't kill an equally geared opponent, but at the same time, increasing it by 2% is not going to change it much. And especially if you're a demon archer, and I believe something like 80 to 90% of the PWI population of archers are actually demon, your sharpened tooth arrow or stun will yield a critical strike rate buff that does not stack with Leaf Dance. So even if you use it before the battle for that 2% crit rate bonus, you're probably gonna go like, say, just on your normal AA target, arcane armor target. You'll probably open with like quick shot, and then stun or stun and quick shot, or even sharpened tooth arrow if they're highly refined, and then quick shot or stun. So you see, like, as soon as the battle begins, that crit rate buff is basically getting overwritten. So it's essentially useless if you're demon and have demon skills, and even if you're not demon and or you don't have the demon skills, it's still useless because the crit rate increase is barely noticeable. It's 2%. That's what 1 in 50 chance of that's like 1 in 50 chance of increasing of hitting a crit. And even with like 40% base crit rate, you're gonna increase your chance by like 1 in 30 or something like that. So it's still not really worth it. Right. Next skill should be Relentless Courage. Yes, I found it. Yeah, this was the skill I was gonna talk about. This skill, I believe the duration increases as you level the skill, but so does the energy. So as you can see on Astero's Genie calculator, the energy at level 1 is 50 and it lasts for 3.5 seconds, and it costs 140 energy at level 10, but it lasts for 8 seconds. Its effect is that increases your attack speed by 5%, increases your movement speed by 5%, and increases your challenge speed by 5%, which is basically useless. I mean, I know that strength and dexterity increases the percentage increase, but if you look at the two main attributes, which are the increased APS and increased movement speed, it's strength based. And say you have an 80 strength genie, and that only increases by 25% for both your attack speed and movement speed. Demon Quickshot increases your APS by I think it's 33%. I don't know, it's a long time since I looked at the description, but it's either 25% or 33%. So even with a high strength genie, and let's face it, a strength genie is pretty much useless on an archer. I mean, I've yet to see an archer use a strength genie effectively, so until I see an archer use the strength genie effectively, I think I stand correct in saying a strength genie is useless for an archer. It only increases your attack by 25%. and your movement speed by 25%, and of course that also overwrites your wings of protection buff, which renders that buff useless. So basically you only use this skill for increasing APS, and using 140 energy on, say, even on a high strength genie would be most of its energy, and using it on a normal genie, you'd only get a 5% increase in APS, even though you would have you'd have a lot more energy. So, but even then, it's 140 out of what, 225 max. You're only left with like 85 energy, just for a 5% increase in APS. So overall, this skill is pretty much stupid. I don't know why anyone would have it, although looking around my server, there are obviously a few archers who still have this skill. If you want a skill that increases your APS, go for Windshield. It uses 35 energy at level 1, and it increases your attack speed by more than Relentless Courage does. I don't know why anyone would actually have this skill over Windshield for increasing APS. Yeah, this skill is basically worse than Windshield, and I think Windshield is a pretty bad skill. So yeah, next skill is I can't find it again. This is annoying. Occult Ice. There we go. Yeah, once again, it's pretty much a strength dependent skill. At level 10, it only has 30% chance to. I know the skill description says freeze, but it's basically a stun because you can't do anything, and Badge of Courage actually removes the stun, and Remove Paralysis doesn't. So it's a stun. It's a 30% chance to stun the target for 6 seconds. I know melees use this skill because they actually have to stun lock, but as an archer, you don't actually have to stun lock to kill someone. Yeah, 30% chance is quite a high chance to fail. You would have to have like an 70 or 80 strength genie for this to work. Once again, I have to emphasize how useless a strength genie is for an archer, and yeah, like even if you got the strength dependent skills, most of those strength dependent skills are fail anyway, regardless if they're strength dependent or not. I mean, even if Occult Ice was dexterity dependent, for example, for every 2 genie dexterity points increases the success rate by 1%, you probably still don't want to have it because it's right. It's got a 10-meter range, which means to use this skill offensively, you have to be within 10-meter range of someone. I don't see why, as an archer, you would actually want to be within 10 meter range of someone. Unless, well, can't think of any exceptions actually. Yeah, I mean, with its range, the only thing I can see about it is that you would use it defensively, and even then it doesn't work because this skill cannot be used if you're slapped or stunned or sealed and frozen, like as seen together. So yeah, it doesn't really work as a defensive skill either, and it still has kind of like a high chance to fail unless you got a very high strength genie. And the only time I can think that you might be fighting someone within 10 meter range is if you're fighting like a wizard who's trying to take advantage of the archer, the range damage, the thing that nerfs your damage by 50% if you're within the minimum range, so they like distance shrink into your face. That's like the only time I can think that you would be attacking someone and be in the 10 meter range. But nowadays with the new Morai skills, archers can just leap away. Even fighting melees, you should probably just leap away as soon as they teleport to you or like run near you. So yeah, this skill is pretty much useless.